I think when I first met him, I like had one of our very first Legends League shirts. It was like the first time I put anything in like a poly bag and it had a tag on it, and I like tried to slide it to him. And then he said something like, short of making a 3-sleeve t-shirt, you're not doing anything new. And you gotta remember that. And it kind of humbled me, you know what I mean?
Adrian's legacy as a person, I think, is just as like this incredibly genuine dude who's been involved in the scene for Toronto 25 plus years and, you know, continuing. Two Black Guys was just sort of the, you know, that connection to the Mary J video was a big deal for Toronto. I mean, the fact that it didn't just say their logo on the jerseys, it said the word Toronto.
He just didn't want to make clothes. He wanted to make clothes that said something, that carried a meaning. But don't be mistaken that, Franny, for 1 second, that it's just about what's on the shirt. That guy is so meticulous with quality, design.
Nothing he puts out is below a certain standard. It's always at this standard or even pushing to the next.
Adrian's like the last of a dying breed. Like, not a lot of people conduct business like him. Not a lot of people have the respect for the game like he does, and not a lot of people have the knowledge of the game like he does.
He's always been kind of quiet about his success, and, you know, wasn't so much about the fanfare, so I'm kind of stoked that this is going down.
He is one of the original visionaries in streetwear, 100%. Design, period. But streetwear?
People like, you know, Jeff Staple keep Adrian in very high regard and just tells him every time that, you know, you have balls of steel.
Everybody, please help me in welcoming of Two Black Guys fame, Mr. Adrian.
Thank you for putting this bar here for my short legs, which is good.
It would be terrible if all the pictures it was just dangling like
I look like a little baby.
Or Kevin Hart, one of the two.
Yeah, a long-toothed baby.
So before we get started, just please explain to everybody, like, you know, for some people, their careers start in a bedroom, in a garage, at a community center. Where did the idea of Two Black Guys come from? And was it just you, or was there a group of you that came together to mastermind this legendary line?
Well, it really started with the desire that I really got when I was in university to own my own business. And at the time, there was, you know, the do-for-self sentiment was like so prevalent in the community, and that's really what I want to be a part of. So I had a bunch of different ideas, and I went to a bunch of different friends, and I finally convinced one out of maybe 7 to start this thing, and then I got another one involved, and so there was 3 of us when we started. But everybody was sort of on the whole tip that they wanted to do something that meant something a little bit more than, you know, just putting something out. And I think that's really what the whole idea was about, was doing something more than just putting something on t-shirts or whatever that, you know, said nothing.
Because of the different, and, you know, we can all see some of the iconic pieces that you made over the years, because those were so, I mean, to people like me, I was a little bit more rebellious. I was hardcore into Public Enemy, Paris, all them things. Yes. So where my brain was at the time, like, I was like, yes, man, and more. What was it like growing up in your household? Like, what was it that, I guess, kind of helped to mold that train of thought that would then lead to those designs?
Well, I had an older brother who, when I was 13, gave me a copy of Malcolm X's autobiography. And reading that, and growing up in Scarborough at a time when Scarborough was, brap. So, but southern Scarborough, like, you guys don't know how old I am, but like southern Scarborough was old, yeah. That'll work. Southern Scarborough was not what it looks like now. It was like, you know, me and my brother were the only black kids in our whole school. So
In Scarborough?
in Scarborough, yes, McCowan and Eglinton. Imagine that. I know. Not till I was in grade 7 was there any other black people in our school. Wow. Yes. Thank you to her for coming through. So, from a very early age, we were very aware of what it was to not be part of the big party that was happening. And I think that, that helped mold the position. I don't think it sort of made me or my brother or whatever, we weren't angry about it. I mean, it was just, we're not the same. And people were very clear about saying, you're not the same. And we embrace that. So it's like, we're not going to be the same, and we're cool with not being the same. And I think that part of that sort of was seated in the brand in that we wanted to make clothes for people who didn't want to be the same and wanted to, point out the fact that they were happy not being the same. And I think that's when the brand succeeded, it was because we were able to connect with the people who wanted to make a statement about how proud they were to be different. And I think as we sort of continue on with the brand, I think I still try to infuse that into the stuff that I do. And at the same time, my other work very much has to do with creating uniforms. So people who want to say, I'm part of something, whether it's part of something that's the same as big as Canada, or I'm part of something that's as small as a hip-hop culture in Toronto. So it's sort of, I want people to know that I'm good with being different, and I want to connect with people who are the same and feel the same as I do.
Before we get to the city at large at that time, were your parents supportive of it off top?
Yeah, my mom was, she's, like single parent, raising 3 boys and doing whatever she had to do to make it happen. And, I think she, like most, first generation Canadians was, would rather have had me go to law school. Up until probably maybe 10 years ago, she was still asking me if I was going to go to What about Teachers College? I thought didn't you want to be a teacher?
Where was she from?
Jamaica.
Nice.
Yeah, Spanish Town.
I mean, I
Big
knew
up your
that,
chest.
but I'm just...
Big up your chest, Spanish Town.
Insert gunshots. So we know what it was like in Southern Scarborough at the time. Southern Scarborough. I'm going to refer...
Pre-Malvern.
Right.
We were so poor that we didn't even get into Malvern. I remember application denied.
What was the city like at that time? What was Toronto like? Because I mean, I know for us when we were young, younger, we used to travel to different areas around, around the city. We'd go, wherever we live, we go to the east, west, always to pick up girls. That's the only reason we travel. What was the city like, like the vibe of it, the atmosphere at that time?
Yeah, I think it was the same. I mean, we would, we would get across the city too for the same reason. So we would spend most of our Saturdays at Eaton Center on the 2nd floor by Le Chateau, which was the best spot because you could see like 2 different floors at the same time. And I mean, it was house parties and roller skating, and like that was my come up.
Yeah.
And I think it was a lot different than what's happening now because it wasn't so regional, neighborhoody. Like there weren't these sort of neighborhood boundaries that you couldn't go, you can't go through here. I mean, if there was a, if there was a house party, we go anywhere for a house party. Like, and like when we worried about what's going to happen or how you're, if you're going to have to, leave out real quick or anything. It was a lot cooler that way. And I think that like that probably changed sometime in the 90s. Along with a lot of other things that sort of changed culturally, and with the music as well. Was it,
I know we spoke about specifically like the school that you went to and the neighborhood that you grew up in, but was it, was multiculturalism on a whole in the city embraced at that time? Or, because the thing is, it's like, I know my parents came over in like the early 70s or whatever, and I know that various people from various different countries around the world kind of came over during the Trudeau times, during the Trudeau years. But was the city at that time, were they open to embracing multiculturalism, like when you were coming up high school and into university?
I think a lot of what it is now, I mean, they talk a lot about embracing multiculturalism, but it doesn't really, it wasn't really affecting us in a way that sort of helped us get to the next level or helped us as a young, like 20-something-year-old kid, even coming out of university, because I graduated, from U of T, not York. But you know how that goes. So even coming out of university with my U of T degree, the city's perspective on multiculturalism wouldn't have led me to a position where I would have been able to go to a bank and get a loan. So that also formed the basis of how we decided we were going to do business, and that's sort of been formative, through the entire time that I've been doing business. Is like do for self, don't ask for nothing. So our way of getting around the fact that we wouldn't have gotten a loan I just imagine going into a bank manager's office and saying, yeah, so I got this T-shirt idea where I'm going to do T-shirts that say, it's got a picture of a lynching on the front, and there's a debt to the Negro people which America can never repay, and I just need like a few $1,000s to make this happen. And we're like, yeah, I can see the end of that story. So let me just scrape together my pennies and whatever, and literally we started the business with just under $2,000.
Wow, that's insert clap.
But adjusted for inflation, that would be probably about $14 million.
Can you, sorry guys, these are just my little cheat notes so that I don't randomly go into stuff like how York University had better dances than U of T and
True.
better girls and cooler subjects to study. Better Black Students Union, stuff like that.
Yeah, BSU, yes.
For those who may not have an understanding of the full picture of your career, can you talk about, I'm going to mention a couple of things, and if you forget, it's okay, because I got the U of T cheat sheets here. Obviously, just a little bit about two black guys. Maybe share something that the crowd doesn't know, but also, your involvement with Roots, the Olympic Lines, and then, opening the doors for, people like OVO to have their very own varsity jacket. Insert clap there. Your involvement in Echo, that many people don't know about, Canada Goose, et cetera, et cetera. Just give them like the story, but in your words, not the bio, but the actual real thing.
Well, so Two Black Guys was happening and popping, and we sort of got into a situation where we changed the business model and grew to a point where we weren't really able to sustain the level of business that we're at without taking on investment or changing again and doing the thing that people call sellout, which a term I don't like to use, but so I made a decision at that point to, if I couldn't do the business the way that I wanted to do it, I'd rather not do it at all. And throughout the 90s, I'd bump into the owners of the co-founders of Roots, Michael and Don.
But hold on, that's like most people wouldn't have done that. So that's not a small
not a
thing.
normal
Like,
thing. Yeah.
Why just go all the way? Like, I'm good, I'm out. Like,
For the brand?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because it was one of those situations where either you double down and go all the way in, or I pull out and say, okay, you know what? I'm good with what I've accomplished here, and there's a new opportunity for me, but I need to divest from Two Black Guys in order to fully sort of maximize my opportunity with this new course. So I like the Don and Michael proposal really came at the right time, sort of the right time in my trajectory to say, you know what, I wouldn't mind changing it up and doing something different right now.
Was there ever a feeling of, I don't want to say guilt, not failure, no, but like, because culturally it was so important to so many different people, did you ever spend, days at home thinking, man, like, what I'm doing is not just about clothing, but it's making statements. It's actually helping facilitate a shift in people's mentalities, you know what I mean, and in their knowledge of self and all the rest of that. Because you got to remember, and for those of us, there's plenty of people in here rocking Two Black Guys stuff. It wasn't just black people that wore Two Black Guys clothing. Like, it was a very influential, important line to so many people. So did that ever, like, you know what I'm saying, especially in the earlier times when you locked it off, did that kind of haunt you at all?
Well, I'll tell you what it was. It's as much a black line as a hip hop line, and my feeling at that time was, here's an opportunity for me to take that essence of hip hop and inject it into a Canadian company in an authentic way that can get out to the entire population. So I thought that I could bring something fresh to a company that was already doing a lot of things well, and help them reach a part of the population in a way that was authentic and still paid tribute to the music and culture that I love, which was hip hop. So that was sort of like, I can do this with Two Black Guys. I can do this with. Let me see if I can do this with Roots.
Okay, sorry, I interjected, but continue on.
The
We're
Roots
going
story.
into yep.
So I started out with Roots in 1999, and had the opportunity, I guess, and good fortune of being able to do a bunch of things that I wouldn't have been able to do with my own company. I mean, we're talking about going from a small sort of ma and pa, even though it's just pa no ma, operation to a multi-million-dollar, multi-store international brand. And it exposed me to a lot, and I actually, I learned a lot, and I grew a lot, both in design and in business, the opportunity that I got to design the Olympic collection for Canada, and then again in 2002 to design both the Canadian and U.S. Olympic team uniforms. So for people who don't remember exactly, I mean, 2002 was the first games in the United States post 9/11. So it was a really, really big deal for the Americans, and patriotism was just like rampant. It was like crazy. So here's this Canadian company who's designing the uniforms for the American team, in the games where they want to make the biggest statement ever. Sort of reminiscent of the 1936 games in Berlin. Like, it was on that level in terms of emotion, and everyone was sort of paying attention to, like, so what are these guys gonna do? And at that point, a lot of the media, the fashion media, at least anyway, was saying, why is this Canadian brand doing it? Why isn't Ralph Lauren doing it? They're going to mess it up, and they're going to make us look like a bunch of hosers. So our challenge was to do something that would make the American team proud in a way that was still true to the brand, which was Canadian, and then at the same time design a completely distinct and different Canadian line for our athletes, so they wouldn't feel like, oh, you guys spent all your time and attention paying the Americans. So to design two collections simultaneously that had two very, very sort of distinct needs and two crying babies, and you had to feed them both. It was a great challenge for me, and whether or not it was a good job or not, I think is really comes down to the numbers. So it was the most successful collection. Up until that point, it was the most successful sports wear collection or sports event collection in the history of, like, the world. But it takes a machine to do that. So I was a part of the machine. I might have been the part of the machine that put the ideas on paper, but in order to come up with in order to execute something at that scale, you got to give it up to Roots as well. I mean, those guys have, they know what they're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So big up to Roots also. You were involved with Mark Echo and Echo for a while.
Oh yes. So the Echo story. So I'm chilling at Roots. I'm good. It's 2003. Just won Design of the Year award. I'm like, yeah, I'm good at this thing. I think I'm good at this designing thing. And I was settled. I was happy. And then I get a call from Mark Echo. We're looking for a design director. We know you've done stuff, and and I bump into them quite a few times, like through the trade shows in the U.S. and whatnot. And I'm like, I'm good. Thanks, but I'm good. And they're like, well, just come down and meet with us and let's have a conversation. I'm like, okay, I can't be disrespectful. I'm gonna come and have the conversation. So I get to the airport, and the driver comes out and takes me to the stretch limo, and I'm like, what? A stretch limo? Now we're talking. Now we're talking. Like, these guys do not have it right. Like, this is what I'm like, I'm designer of the year, goddamn. Stretch limos are what I'm about. So I said I went, I had the meeting, and then even coming back, I was like, yeah, okay, that was fun, whatever, but I'm good. So, they call me and say, that was a great meeting. What would it take to get you down here? And I said, I basically just created a number out of my head, and I said, it would take this.
It's an ignorant number.
Yeah, just crazy, just bananas.
Stupid.
Yeah. And they said,
like long, like stretch limo every day.
Yeah, everyday limo money, for here and home. And
the bright yellow bananas, no spots money.
And set up moms too. And a limo for moms. Yeah.
Jeez.
That kind of money. And they were like, sure. So now I'm like, okay, well, I gotta go. I gotta go. And then I went. But the problem is, and for the people who are here who are making those kind of decisions or at that position in their career, when they want to when they have that sort of opportunity, it's not just about the money, because when I got there, the position wasn't right for me, and when I did the interview and everything, I thought we were going to go down one path, and when I got there the first day, they're like, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this whole collection for blacks, and it's going to be headed to mom and pa's, and we want to take out Rockaware and Sean John. I'm like, whoa, this is not what I signed up for. I'm directing you to be the next Tommy Hilfiger, and you want to be Diddy. And I'm like, you're Mark Echo.
Right.
You are not Sean Puffy Combs.
Right.
So this will not work, and the fact that I'm here isn't going to, I can't leverage two black guys to turn you into something, turn this brand into something that's not. Mm-hmm. And they were like, well, then what are you doing here? And I'm like, you're right. What am I doing here? So I got back on the plane.
Wow. How long did that relationship?
Just short of a year.
Okay.
Which is short. So I came back and I was like, I really like Canada, and I like living here, and I like what it represents, and I like how we design. Because Canadians design like fashion comes from function in Canada, and it's not the American style, and it's not European style, and it's not even Asian style. We have a very distinct way of designing that we sort of overlook in our sort of humility. Like, we don't really think of ourselves as designers, but we do design and we do influence, but we just don't know how it is that we're doing it.
What were a couple of your favorite Canadian designers coming up, or lines?
It was the brands, right? So it was the Canada Gooses, and it was the North Stars, and it was Roots, and like it was. And Club Monaco, like those are the brands to me that was like, they said something about, what fashion meant to them in a different way. So I came back and I started looking for, working with, people who or brands I thought I could be, proud to work with, and my particular style would add something to what it is that they were doing.
Dope.
Yeah. So that takes us into Canada Goose. Mm-hmm. And Canada Goose at that point was, it certainly wasn't everywhere. It was on the come up.
It was on Big C.
It was on Big C. Yes.
Yeah.
And not a lot else. But that's the start of everything. So Canada Goose was another great experience. I mean, actually, I skipped one. I came back and did Blue Notes for a minute. I did Blue Notes for a year. Yeah.
Blue Notes.
Well,
how many people remember Blue Note jeans?
Blue Note jeans?
We go to Eaton Center, reasonably priced,
Yeah.
ill-fitting.
Ill-fitting jeans. That's the post-Adrian era.
Oh, see.
Yeah, Blue Notes sells more jeans in Canada than anybody.
Wow.
It's unbelievable what they sell.
Crazy.
So one of the things that I took this as a personal challenge, because when I was in Echo, they told me I couldn't design jeans, and I was like, yeah, I can design jeans. I just can't design the jeans you want right now. The magic jeans that you're looking for. So I took this job at Blue Notes, to do denim, and I did denim and I learned denim. But then Blue Notes, that was owned by American Eagle at the time, got bought by the guy who owned Stitches.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what I said.
Stitches was popping around like 93.
Oh. back it up.
Yeah, like Caravana time,
back
tear
it
up
up.
jeans.
Yeah.
I mean, I know tear up is back, but there's a lot of colors and tear up back them times.
All of the above.
Yeah.
So that wasn't a good fit. So I had to go. So off I went again.
Mm-hmm.
And I ended up at Canada Goose, and that was a great relationship. And I designed, a bunch of stuff that lasted a long time, which was good for me.
Wicked.
And then another Canadian brand, another iconic Canadian brand, I got a hold of was at the Bay, and again, it was an opportunity to design Olympic uniforms. So, it's sort of comfortable for me, or at least it was for me at that point, and it was a good opportunity. So, with Vancouver 2010, so another home games, another home team, another important collection because I know people remember in 2008 how badly the Bay did with their uniforms for Beijing.
Yikes.
It was embarrassing, and again a lot of pressure because everyone was like, okay, how are they? And I've worked at a bunch of companies. Some companies people root for. Some companies people want to succeed, like Roots. People love Roots. They want Roots to win. People hate the Bay. They want the Bay to fail. So when the Bay had the Olympic collections previously, everyone was like, this sucks. Why isn't Roots doing it? Roots should be doing it. It's like, it's horrible. Everything was better when Roots did the Olympic collection. Right. So when I did the Olympic collection for the Bay, the comments were, oh, that's a great Roots collection. so that was sort of that was the best compliment. It's like, people are happy now. Right. Because they think Roots is doing it again.
What is it like because I'm sure there's some young designers that are either in the audience or that will see this. What is it like being in these, functioning within these big companies as the young black guy? Like, because I know what that's like existing in various different companies and different situations. What was it like for you being the young black guy, the guy, he's the two black guys guy who wears his hat sideways? Like, what was it like being that guy within these prestigious corporations?
Well, thanks for calling me young, first of all.
Ish.
I'll take it. I'll take youngish. I'll take youngish. Well, yeah, I mean, what was it like? What is it like? Because it's still the same.
Touche.
Right? So, because I'm still going to work, I look like this, maybe not with these shoes, but,
well,
something rootsy, maybe. But it's an obstacle, but it can be overcome, and you can't let it be the obstacle that prevents you from doing what it is that you need to get done. And whether it's the young black kid or the young weird kid or someone who just doesn't fit in, that's not an obstacle that you can allow to prevent you from succeeding,
right?
Because it can be overcome. You start out as that, but then it's not that difficult to become known as the young talented kid or the young hardworking kid. And once you get to that position, then they don't really care what it is that you look like,
right? So basically, the color is success.
The color is success for eventually.
You can make a T-shirt if you wanted.
There you go.
I'm just saying.
I hired Hardy to do some T-shirt design.
TM.
TM.
I want to get to some juicier stuff, but we went to Canada Goose. We discussed the Bay and North Star, and then we'll get to some fun stuff.
So North Star North Star was a passion project for me. I've been thinking about doing North Star since I came back from New York. Because again, it's an iconic Canadian brand that I remember when I was growing up as like it was the shoe. It was sort of the shoe you couldn't get when the shoe you got when you couldn't afford Adidas. But like everybody.
I had all those, by the way.
You had all the North Stars?
No, I had all the shoes you couldn't get.
Afford.
Like when you couldn't afford it, the other ones.
The other ones, yeah. So,
the ones that like when it had the plastic that was right here that held them together.
Yeah.
Some people feel shame in the audience. Don't be ashamed of the
no boxes, no shoe boxes.
No shoe boxes.
It was on the bin.
The row that says 12.
12. Well, that was my when. I remember when we were going to school, me and my brother, and we wanted the new Adidas had just come out, and we're like, "Mom, can we get these? Can we get these?" She looked at the price. She goes, "No." But you can get these. And we're like, oh man, first day of school, we're going to go to school, and everybody's going to have 3 stripes. We're like, what's going on our feet? And we get to school, and everybody's got the 2 stripes. Everybody's got the North Stars. So it's like, it tells you what South Scarborough was like back in that time. So it was sort of like our thing then, and I liked that it was our thing versus an American thing versus a European thing, and I thought that there was an opportunity for us to sort of redefine what that meant, our thing, in a way that I'd been successful at doing it with the Olympic collections. To take all of that experience and that I'd earned and turn it into a business for myself and sort of set myself up. And started out well, but then we hit a hurdle that we couldn't overcome, which was Adidas. Thank you. And so we had to change directions. I had to change directions again.
Damn, 3 stripes.
3 stripes, and you're out.
They're the UFT of shoes. So.
Sore.
Let's get into some fun stuff now. So,
All right, the fun stuff.
2 black guys have been worn by the likes of our own Drake, Mary J. Everybody remembers the Mary J. I remember that was huge, and I know like amazing people have worn it, but the Mary J. that was just so big because at the time, just everything that was happening, that was. I don't know. I think so many of us were so proud on many different levels, but Mary, Mos Def, Ice Cube, Spike Lee. I just really want to talk about the vibe of what it felt like, and especially at that time, because that's pre-internet, that's everything, all the luxuries that we have now. Like, I'm sure if anybody, like if I fell off the chair, everybody snaps and it's, the world knows about it right away. Right. But it's like, at those times, it was more of a monocultural type of thing. It was more event-based, you know what I'm saying? Like everybody knew, oh, Mary J was gonna be on The Box or on MTV or whatever. So everybody watched, and then, you would see whomever with what they were wearing. Everything kind of meant a lot more because people had to work a lot harder to attain certain brands. People had to work hard to make sure a show was like this. Everything, like, there was just a lot more that went into it because those moments were so important. What was it like? Describe the feeling for you and the crew when you saw some of these people, and this is before you got to meet them, but what was it like when you saw these people wearing your things, or when you heard that such and such wore, wore the joints?
Well, you touched on a key point, which is that we would hear. So we heard that Ice Cube's wearing something. We heard that Ice-T wore something here. Or we heard, so you wouldn't see it. You just hear it. And then I remember every month we look in the source, and we'd see in the source who was wearing what and when, because that's the only way we would actually really know.
The source was a magazine. We used to flip through the pages.
Wait, yeah.
And that's how we were updated with what was going on. In hip hop.
Yeah, once a month. Yeah, you have to explain what a magazine is. Yeah, a magazine is. Yeah. So the Mary J.
Let's see what happens next month. Sorry. So.
yeah, next month I'll see. Yeah. So the Mary J. thing, I think, and I've told the story a million times, but like I wish I could say that I was a mastermind that created that came up with this elaborate plot, and we'd actually engineered that, and it just happened. It really sort of happened without us even knowing about it until it actually had happened. So her stylist bought the jersey from a store that was selling our stuff in New York, and then the store called and said, "Oh yeah, the stylist bought your shirt." But we get those calls like every other week. The stylist bought your stuff, and then oh, great, okay, whatever. And then so when we actually someone said, "Oh, we just saw the video, and your stuff's all up in it." We're like, "Okay, cool," but we didn't really know what it looked like or meant or felt like, whatever. But the big part about that was that it said Toronto on it. Mm-hmm. So back in the day before the internet, people would actually, clap for that.
Clap for
that, sure.
Some like anarchists back there?
Yeah,
before the internet, yes!
Yes, that's right. I'm here for that. So back in the
dark ages,
the Enlightened era,
right?
People would actually have to phone directory, like 411 of whatever area code you were looking for, to find like a store phone number
Right.
because we didn't have there was no email or like that was it. Like you wanted to get through to us, you were calling us on the phone, which we intentionally had like a dial rotary phone just on purpose because we were like, like that guy in the back.
Yeah.
So when that happened, people could say, "Oh, it's from Toronto,"
Right.
because I think people had heard about it, and we'd started to get people coming up into to our store, like particularly around Carabana, like was a really big time. We used to call it Second Christmas because we get so many American customers coming in because they were here and they're like, "Oh, I've been hearing about this brand, but I can't get it in Cleveland or in Chicago or wherever it is that they were coming from." But now people knew where it was.
What was it like to get that spot? You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, how many people actually got to go to that spot way back in the day?
Thank you for coming. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out.
What was it like initially getting that spot? The Toronto spot.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was easy, no resistance. Our first store, which was sort of it was in the basement of Third World Bookstore, and Third World Bookstore was like, you clap for that. Because Third World Bookstore was like a pillar of the community. Like people met there, people bought books there, they got informed there. There were like study groups and stuff that happened. Like it was like a cultural sort of lightning rod. Like everybody got together there. So we convinced them, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, to let us have the basement of their bookstore. You clap for that too. R.I.P.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Johnson.
Yeah, R.I.P. To let us use the basement of their store, in the evenings and Saturday up until 12, because the study group was there on Saturday. So we would, basically set up, and their basement was like everyone else's basement, like it had a bunch of stuff in it. So they wouldn't let us move anything out. So what we did is we covered everything with black tarp. And then we had like this really thin line of lights so that you didn't really see anything until you got to this little sectioned off part that we had where we actually hung stuff on a grid, like metal grid really. And
what were some of the craziest people like during your time there? What were some of the most, I guess, the biggest personalities that came through?
Well, Ice Cube, I think, was the tipping point for us when we were still in the basement. To see Ice Cube come through with the lynch mob, like coming down these stairs, and it's like it sounded like a herd of elephants was coming down the stairs because there was like so many of them, and it's Ice Cube, and to have him make that sort of journey, going through a bookstore, down the stairs, through this long, dark sort of corridor where you don't know what's happening in the city you're not familiar with, and going to this metal box. We're like, wow, this is pretty impressive that someone at his level or caliber would actually come to
go to those lengths
to an environment like this.
Yeah.
But then we moved quickly from there to our own sort of store, which was just basically around the corner, and it was a space that no one had been able to make successful for the landlord, and we were there for about 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah. But keeping in mind, I mean, it was at a time when it was cool to not be in the way of everybody. We wanted to be on the beaten path. We wanted to be off the beaten path. So we could have chosen a location that was more mainstream to get a lot of traffic, but we deliberately wanted to be out of the spotlight because, first of all, we didn't want to have to entertain a bunch of people just wandering in off the street saying, "Oh, what do we have in here? Ooh, 2 black guys. What is this all about?" Yeah. So, which is what you get now online, right? So we just wanted to avoid all of that because I'd really rather not talk to anyone than talk to everyone.
I feel the same.
Half the time. So we chose a location where people would have to actually find us. And we figured that when they found us, it was because they wanted to find us, and when they got there, it's probably because they wanted to, they wanted to be about what we were about. So that location was ideal for us for those reasons. And when we decided to open in New York, we chose a location that was the same. So again, it was off the beaten path. It wasn't like in the way of anybody. You had to, go out of your way to find it. And it got to the point where tour buses from visiting countries, particularly Japan, would actually stop by our store in New York as like one of the hip hop tours, whatever.
Right.
So like you get these Japanese customers coming.
And
buying a
there,
busload.
if you look to your left.
Yeah, exactly. The indigenous people of Lower East Side. Yeah. So
Can we touch a little bit on, because I remember, I don't remember why I was in New York, but I remember I got there. I was there at a time and the store had been robbed like the week before.
that one.
Yeah. What was the New York vibe and the New York reception like to Two Black Guys?
Because we had two stores in New York. In Lower East Side, which wasn't the Lower East Side that it is now for people who are familiar with New York, it was a developing neighborhood when we were there, and like it was full of people who were like sort of local, very local, and then there was a lot of people who dealt heroin and like so people would so there's that kind of traffic, and then there was like a hip hop spot right beside us called 555 Soul. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that brand. Clap for that too.
They were okay.
Yeah, a little bit.
They were all right.
Yeah, she's been around for a little while. So we opened up beside her, and so we were creating this little vibe in that neighborhood, and it was really, really cool. We were there for a year, and then we said, you know what, we need to move somewhere maybe with a little more volume. That block was getting a little hot, and so we decided to move to Brooklyn, which was right beside, which actually was
Safer.
in Spike. We thought it was in Spike Lee's building.
Oh, okay.
So he was like our landlord.
Nice.
And it was in a nice part of Brooklyn, Fort Greene, where it was like, Wesley Snipes had a brownstone, Spike had his brownstone, we were renting a little spot, and, Diggle plants lived on the block, and it was a really cool
What the hell was Spike Lee like as a landlord?
as a landlord?
Yeah.
He was an absentee landlord. He was busy. He was making movies. But he got his rent every month.
Well,
Everybody gets their
somebody
rent
has to
every
pay
month.
for those Knicks tickets.
Somebody has to pay for them Knicks tickets. So when we were in Lower East Side, we were part of a community there. When we were in Brooklyn, we weren't.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were in Lower East Side, we didn't get robbed. When we were in Brooklyn, we did. So when we got robbed once, a couple of times, and really we had a store that was as big as the stage, and like we couldn't have three people working in a store that small.
Right.
So what they would do is like 4 or 5 people would come in with our one employee. One person occupies the employee, and the other people clean up the store.
Right.
Which was okay, whatever. I mean,
That's now known as the Scarborough. If you
is
didn't.
that the Scarborough?
The Scarborough. That's
Scarborough
what you-
shopping.
That's what you do.
Yeah. So we were good with that up until the point where the store two doors down from us got robbed at gunpoint. We're like, okay, I'm not really down with putting people's lives at risk for for what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided, okay, let's go home. We went back.
Fair
We came
enough.
back to Toronto, where it's safer, even in Scarborough.
Southern Scarborough. If you had, out of all these amazing pieces, and I know it's tough because it's the same. Like if somebody is like, "Yo, what's your favorite song you've ever done in your life?" But like, if you had to, I guess maybe 1 or 2 pieces, like just without really thinking about it at the front of your brain, like what is your favorite Two Black Guys piece?
That's a hard question. I didn't really prepare for that. Can't catch a cab? I don't know that one. The new one? Write that one down too, TM.
Trademark, it's clean.
My favorite pieces are the ones that usually no one else ever buys. So
I'm sensing a trend.
yeah, I try not to remember those ones. But I was really, really happy with the denim that we did a little while ago in 2006. But the stuff that I'm doing now, like every time I try anyway, every time I do a new collection, I want it to be better than the collection before.
Mm-hmm.
Take whatever new experience I have, whatever new technology exists, incorporate that into what it is that I'm doing. So I'm on the quest to build the perfect hoodie, and I'm pretty close, I think.
See.
So the last hoodie that I made, which is in part of this collection that we called Runaway Collection, which is based on a viewpoint of slave culture as it translates to our current sort of cultural hierarchy, which happens in like 3 movements. There's Two Black, Runaway, and then Free at Last, sort of like the 3 movements of discovering where you fit into slave culture. So that hoodie or the pieces in that collection are, I think, better built, better fabric than anything I've ever done before, and I like what we're doing with the messaging.
Okay. today, within music, fashion, just within the world, it's such a different place than it was, say, 25 years ago when you started. And even with, with hip hop and black people in general, there was kind of a different mentality, because I mean, it was a lot of, black medallions, and everybody was really kind of, not everybody, but it just seemed that a lot of people were kind of proactive, and they were trying to kind of elevate, inform, and it was kind of cool to be educated, especially about, black history and things we had gone through and where we wanted to go. This time that we're living in right now is not necessarily on everybody's lips. It's not necessarily on everybody's brains. But again, there was kind of maybe a little resurgence with all the tragedies that we as a people have been going through throughout the world. Talk about just a little bit about, I guess, we touched on it briefly, but I want to get like your real feeling, because I mean, a lot of us, especially as black men, sometimes things happen and we go to sleep at night and we wake up the next day wanting to do something to alleviate some of that stuff, or at least bring awareness. And obviously that's what you did with a lot of these different pieces. Talk about what it was like existing back then, where it was more prevalent, and then maybe now where people are more, I guess we're back into the kind of the shiny suit era, where it's like people are more about money and drugs and stuff like that, and are not really into the whole black aesthetic.
Well, I think for us when we started, and especially when we very first started, it was a reaction to what was happening in the market in terms of clothing in particular. So at that point, this was before, like, there was streetwear, before there was really even the concept of brand in a hip hop streetwear sort of way. And the T-shirts that we found, or we saw people wearing a lot of, were T-shirts that were like Black Bart, like a Black Bart Simpson, or it's a black thing you wouldn't understand with a Batman symbol. And we're like, this is like stupid. Like, this is just dumb. Like, what are you saying, and why are you wasting this opportunity? If you're going to say something, right? Be about something. So we were like, people wanted to be about something, and like people wanted that Public Enemy experience, and they wanted that Spike Lee experience, and we wanted to be a part of what what was happening there, as opposed to just putting some stupid slang or knocking off a Calvin Klein T-shirt. So it was all about the message at that point. I think as the brand and as I've evolved, it's about a message, but it's also about the product. And so I think that there are people now who may be as involved, or maybe as connected to the problems that are happening in society, but maybe clothing isn't the way to express it in the way that it used to be. So there's a lot of different ways you can express your discontent. There's a lot of different ways you can sort of let people know what your point of view is. What I needed a T-shirt to do in 1990, I can do with my Tumblr or my Instagram now. So I don't know that the need to express your point of view or your position or how you feel about certain things exists in the same way for clothing as it did back then. So at the same time, I think that there is a portion of the market, at least, and I'm hoping, because in order for my brand and what I do, what we do, to be relevant, there has to be a market that agrees and cares. I think there's a portion of people who want to say something in a more subtle way, perhaps, but still puts them in a position to say, this is who I am and what I'm about.
Speak to like because this is all relevant. I think when the I Can't Breathe tees came out, I think like everybody was trying to get them like hot fire, and not just because it's the cool T-shirt, but I think that everybody had these feelings and they're tweeting about it, but people are like, nobody cares about that after 2 minutes. What can I do? And then, the I Can't Breathe kind of stuff came around, and everybody started buying up that. When I thought about that, I actually did think about like representing through clothing again. Do you think that was just something that was, just for that time, like maybe that month period, or do you think that there kind of is a revitalization and a resurgence of people that are trying to make bold statements, but not just make statements, people that are trying to actively do something and be better. Do you think that it's a real thing, or is it just,
Well,
some hype?
in my heart of hearts, I'd like to believe that it is, but the I Can't Breathe T-shirt doesn't really exist anymore. So we've always sort of avoided sort of getting caught up with bandwagon
Trendy.
stuff.
Yep.
And that to me was like a bandwagon reactionary thing. It happens, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, this is horrible. I want to do something about it. I'm wearing a T-shirt." And then 2 weeks later, the NBA playoffs start, and you're wearing your Derrick Rose jersey again, right? So, what happens in between now and the next one?
Mm-hmm.
If people really care, they'll be doing something about it now, not waiting for something to happen and then reacting.
Right.
So, I'm not sure that clothing is a vehicle or not. I'd like to think that some people think that it is. I'd like to hope that the next generation, because I think I'm a full generation, removed at this point, sadly, from the kids. I'd like to think that there's still, in that generation, there's still kids who would rather stand out than fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And if there are, then I think my brand will be relevant to them. And if they're not, then I'll be sad.
We've two things. One, and this is a very humble person, but honestly, and not just because he's here. Pretend he's not here. Pretend he's back at U of T doing nerdy stuff or whatever.
Graduating.
How many people here feel that 2015, in this year of 2015, that if we saw like some of these powerful images, that it is something that you would want to wear and that you would want to represent? I was gonna say for Toronto, that's like a standing ovation. Just to let you know.
Toronto standing
We've touched on a lot of amazing things. I want us to wrap it up very quickly so that we can actually get to the beautiful people out there and deal with some Q&A. Such an amazing story. We didn't get to touch on a lot of stuff, but we did get to speak about a lot. And I think you really did reinvigorate a lot of people. There's a lot of people that would love to follow in your footsteps, and I'm sure they're very thankful that you took the time to be able to really tell us what it's like of the journey of somebody that came from Toronto, but somebody that has seen some amazing heights, but not that saw the heights and is in some kind of living in obscurity, but somebody who's still doing amazing work. I think your story has been inspirational for myself, of course, and for the rest of the city and the world, because people hit me up from all over the world and they were like so stoked, and they were actually kind of pissed that they couldn't be at this event, because there's a lot of cool people, a lot of designers, artists, musicians, different people that love what you did and what you continue to do. If there was something that you wanted to say to, and they don't have to be young-ish, but that person out there that wants to go against the norm, that person out there that has their clothing line that they want to make legendary, like how Two Black Guys. I think we could say it's a legendary brand at this point in time. If we just had to end off this portion of it by, you giving your advice to somebody. So just say this group of people, it's one body, it's one person, one mind, and somebody wanted their brand to have a similar legacy, but in their own lane. What few last things would you tell them? Little tidbits that you've learned over the years that would help what they're doing get to the next level.
Well, I've said this, and I'll say this to anyone who listens to me, because I say it all the time. There is a way to make it happen. So there are people who are going to be telling you that if you want to launch a brand, it's going to take X amount of dollars. It's going to, you have to invest a certain amount of money, and there's only one way to do it, and there isn't. There's so many different ways to do it, and I think that with the internet and with being able to retail online, it's even leveled the playing field even more. Like, you can start very, very small and develop a brand that can become very, very big. If I think part of it is singular focus, but I think that if you sort of don't allow the obstacles to stop you, I mean, you've got to deal with them, but you can't let them stop you. So people say, well, you need, X amount of thousands of dollars to do it. Well, you don't. You can start smaller. Like, find a way to make it smaller, make it manageable, manage your risk, manage your exposure, spend as little money as you can, as you need to. But there's a way to make it happen. And I think that's what our brand set out to do. And I think that's what, in a lot of ways, what it has done is shown people that there is a way to do it from one, like even from a one-person operation to turn it into something really, really big. Or it doesn't even have to necessarily be really, really big. I mean, you've got to also sort of think about what is your threshold for success. Is success to you making $100 million, or success for you creating a business for yourself that employs where you can employ yourself and have a happy and sort of fulfilled life. There's nothing is better than waking up in the morning and not hating your job. Like there's no, you can't buy that. And in a lot of ways, that if that's your threshold for success, then you can find a path to get there.
Perfect.
Adrian, thanks for everything, for me personally and all the guidance, but also for the city.
25 years, it's been a long journey.
Shout out to Adrian and Two Black Guys.